Good morning, good morning. Once again, doing something a little bit different today. E-bikes. Bad weather in the winter. You're just going to eat chains, or at least I have been, because I've been furloughed and I've been riding 3 or 4 times a week, 20 miles a time at least, through the mud. So there's a number of things that you can do to make them last a bit longer. The tools that you're going to need is a chain checker. But not that one. They're rubbish. That's called a front to back chain checker. They're completely inaccurate, particularly on SRAM chains. This is called a back to back chain checker, and this is the Pedro's version, and they are brilliant, and they will actually accurately measure and tell you when you need to change the chain. So you're going to need that. You're going to need some wet lube. You are going to need a camping stove, a large candle, and a cheap frying pan from the pound store. That's actually just a large candle I've melted in there. Now let's get started with chain. So if you have a good look at the bike, it's not clean. I ride it so often in the winter that I would spend more time cleaning it than riding it. So it gets a hose off. That's all that happens. I get to the end of the ride, this bike will be filthy, and I just give it a hose on a spray, of course, avoiding any bearings. And with a wax chain, just giving it a hose off will pretty much get it clean. And then all you need to do is rub it with a rag normally, and then top it up for about 10 rides with a bit of squirt, a bit of extra wax. Now, the downside is that you do need to still lube your bearings and pivot points on your rear mech. So you do have to still use a little bit of the normal lube and just make sure all of those points are lubed up every time. So to start with, let's just get the chain off. So obviously to get a chain off, I mean, I've got a bad back. This is a good setup for me. But I can also keep the e-bike up the right way. You want one of these tools. You have to get one. You can try it without. You can do it without. But SRAM say their links are reusable, providing you use the correct tool. If you don't, they're not, because you're likely to damage them somewhat in the process of getting them off and taking them off and putting them back together again. Right, so we get the chain off. Nice and easy from this perspective. And then the key thing to do here is make sure you rejoin the chain. Right, so we've got the chain off. The next thing to do is start heating up your wax. You basically want this on a really low heat. I'm going to start it off a little bit higher to get things moving, and then I'm going to turn it on to the lowest possible heat. And if you get this too hot, it's going to catch fire, like a chip pan fire, so pretty dangerous. Don't want to do that. So I keep an eye on it, don't leave it, and once it started melting on a very, very low heat, you'll suddenly just start to see some vapor coming off it, and that's the point that you've got to be careful. Turn it as low as possible, if not off. So the next job is to finish cleaning the chain. Find this pretty easy, especially with wax. Already I'm going to crank that lower for me. Now obviously be careful doing this near the stove because this will catch fire. But basically just whack it with a load of brake cleaner like that. You can already see one side of the chain to the other side of the chain. It's pretty simple. Now when you do this with a normal chain that's not been waxed, what you'll notice is as you spray it, clean it, and you get the oil out of it, you'll start to feel it's crunchy, where yes, it's had oil in it, but it's also then got grit that's got into it. You obviously need to keep on cleaning till it's not crunchy anymore. However, with a waxed chain, you'll find that doesn't happen. It never has a crunchy sort of sensation. So yeah, you've got to probably do a bit more thorough than that, depending on how dirty it is. But for me, that's clean enough. This is obviously paraffin wax, so when it's melted, it's actually a solvent. So one of the things you can do is agitate with a brush if you want, but you know, you're going to throw the brush away. So I'm going to come back to you when in my opinion, you want to get it hot enough just so that it just starts to smoke, and then you immediately want to turn it down. Don't go any hotter than that. Now the reason is, if it isn't hot enough, it won't cook off any moisture and properly dissolve all of the old wax and stuff. So you'll see it's bubbling. Now if you get if you're waxing a brand new chain, it won't do this. This is impurities, it's moisture and stuff that's got into the chain. Even though this chain's been dried out for ages, this is like when you cook chips. It's the moisture turning to steam. So that's why you need it. You need it nice and hot, because you want to basically leave this in there until it stops bubbling. Agitating it can often help a little bit as well towards the end. Now, very important that you rejoin the chain. First of all, it makes it a lot easier to clean. Second of all, it doesn't get so tangled. And third of all, when you wax this and you take it back out, if you haven't joined the chain, it can be very, very difficult to get the link back on. So best to wax it with the link on, and that way it tends to be fairly easy to get it on and off again afterwards. So you just leave that in there for a wee while till it all stops bubbling. See all the little bubbles? You want to keep going until that is basically either completely stopped or Alright, so that's pretty much stopped bubbling, so just give it a little agitation. Get the last few bubbles out of the joints. Now this is where it gets messy. So if you've got a relatively new stove like me, then I suggest you lift it off the stove. Piece of hooked wire. Make sure you hook through the whole of the chain, because otherwise it can sometimes just suddenly slip off, make a big splash. I used to do this in the kitchen, believe it or not, and other than one little cock up, was pretty successful without any big messes. And then just hang that up to cool off. Stage 1 done. Shut down your stove. Obviously leave your pan somewhere to cool off, but it's not going to get knocked. We'll come back when the chain's cooled down. Right, so when your chain's cooled off, yeah, just grab hold of it, and you're going to find it's a bit weird. It's kind of all solid, but there is actually a huge advantage to this when you come to fit your chain, because instead of it flopping about all over the place, it's a doddle. So that will be the next thing. Let's fit the chain. So yeah, one of the other big advantages of is that your quick links ain't going to fall out whilst you're doing this. So makes it quite easy. I mean, it's still not, you still got to fit it through, but you know, a lot easier than normal, in my opinion. together. Chain is installed. Final thing to do, very, very important. Lube. 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 Job done. Pretty easy once you've practiced a bit and got everything set up. You'll get about 10 rides out of it, topping it up, giving it a bit of a clean with a rag and or brake cleaner if you need it. Certainly 10 rides in the summer, maybe a little less. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I'll have 2 chains on the go, so I haven't got to wax it. I'll just have another chain, swap it off, got one that's waxed. Next time, take both off or wax it when I have a chance, and then I've always got a chain ready to go. But certainly in poor conditions, it's worth the hassle if you have got somewhere like this to do it, where you don't got to worry about spilling a little bit of wax. So yeah, all done with the chain waxing. I have actually ridden this since the last shot, but we're going to come down to my enduro bike and we're going to talk chain checkers. And this is the other way that you can increase the life of your chain. Now, I talked about front to back and back to back chain checkers. So this is a front to back, it's the CC2. They also do a CC4, which is the back to back, which is the one you want to get. But this is a much cheaper, simpler and better back to back tool, in my opinion, the Pedro's Chain Checker Plus. It's got all the instructions right on it and how to use it, and it's pretty much a no-brainer. Now I'm going to give you an example. So a front to back measures the one side of one roller and the other side of another, hence front to back. But what that means is roller wear and design are taken into account for wear, when in reality the only thing that is bad with chain wear is actually the pitch change, which is wear on the pins. So if you're taking into account roller wear, which is doubled by measuring opposite sides, then you're going to end up changing your chain way too early. So for instance, on this chain, this is saying about, I don't know, it's probably 80.85, 0.8%, so completely knackered. Like on a 12 speed they say 0.5, on 11 speeds you might be able to get 0.75, and you can get away with 0.75 if you've got a all steel cassette on the back. But basically it's knackered, just about needed changing. So really should have been changed at 0.5. But this Pedro changer will tell you it's not even 0.5 yet. There's quite a bit of life left in that chain. It's absolutely fine. But you do want to change a 12 speed and definitely an e-bike at 0.5, and don't go over with this one. With this one, you can afford to go over a little bit because it's telling you so early. So I highly recommend the Pedro's, only 14 quid. I'm not sponsored, paid for this myself. And that's the end of the video. We'll see you next time.